Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So I was listening to the Tim Ferriss show with Michael Mauboussin today, and this blog post caught my eye, revisiting Warren Buffett's advice to me in 2008. Okay, so it turns out Tim Ferriss, back in 2008, made his way to Omaha at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting and got to ask Warren and Charlie a question. You can actually watch it here. Tim didn't get the answer he wanted. Basically, Buffett said, invest in a low-cost index fund and get back to work, right? Don't waste time. If you're not going to dedicate yourself full-time to being a professional investor, don't bother being a stock picker. Just buy an index fund. And so Tim kind of reflects on that in this blog post and gives the answer that he would give if someone asked him the same question, which was, you're 30 years old, just made their first million, how would you invest it? That's essentially the question Tim asked Warren and Charlie. So let's go through this list. There's 7 points here that Tim covers. I think there's some valuable insights in here. So if someone asked me to give investing advice to a 30-year-old today who had just made their first million, I would first point them somewhere else. I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't think I'm qualified to give anyone financial advice. The particulars matter too much. But if they insisted, here's how Tim would answer. If you want to play in early stage tech investing, where Tim Ferriss made a lot of his money in the investing space, ensure you have a plan for developing an enormous informational advantage. Aim to develop new skills and relationships through portfolio companies so that you can win over time, even if you fail with many bets going to zero. Only bet what you are comfortable losing and what you can recoup in other ways. Though my angel investing snowballed, I began with $10,000 checks and advising for sweat equity. Think of this as tuition for a real-world MBA. Are you willing to move to the hub of activity to ensure the best possible information and deal flow, as I did when I moved to San Francisco lifetimes ago? Or make commensurate commitments or sacrifices to ensure you are in a position to win? If not, I'd suggest choosing a different game. Other people will take the initiatives that you won't, and they will beat you. Much of early stage investing is cooperative, but let's not kid ourselves. A lot of it is competitive, and not everyone will podium finish. So in his first section, he's really just getting to the point. This is a really hard game. Basically, every game in investing is hard. So you have to figure out where you're passionate, where you're going to put a ton of energy, if you're going to have any chance in that kind of subset of investing. Number 2, for the rest, which could be everything, follow Buffett's advice. Keep it simple. One cautionary example of doing the opposite of keeping it simple, I spotted the COVID curveball early, and I made a lot of very sophisticated, code for complex, decisions related to investing, and the associated research, diligence, phone calls, and so on chewed up an unbelievable amount of time and energy. 18 to 24 months later, I'd done very well, but decided to look at how passive S&P 500 returns would have added up over the same period. Well, they were roughly the same, okay? For all of this research, diligence, phone calls, all of this work, executing this complicated strategy didn't outperform the S&P 500. Of course, you can't always bank on this outcome. but beware of seeking complexity if you've been rewarded for problem solving throughout your life. Okay, and this is a big problem with investors in the markets. They think the more complicated I make this, the higher the rewards. Well, it turns out that's rarely the case investing in the stock market. Looking back over the last 15 plus years, the handful of investment decisions that made all the difference have been simple and were somewhat obvious to me. No major gear grinding required. So this is a lot like what Buffett highlighted in his recent letter to partners, letter to shareholders. Over the 60 years that Berkshire has been public, Warren was saying, their very satisfactory results have really just come from 12 decisions, which is like one every 5 years. So this, overlaps very well with what Buffett was saying. Simple, right? Handful of investment decisions that were simple and obvious. Number 3, knowing when to buy isn't enough. Have policies and rules for when you will sell, or the universe will punish you with very bad and very expensive decisions. Right? If you don't have a plan for when you're going to sell, when are you going to sell? When your emotions are screaming at you to sell. And that's usually the worst time to sell from a financial perspective. You'd be selling at the bottom. Number 4, don't discount luck, including lucky timing. I started angel investing seriously in 2008 and hit a golden window of converging trends, cheap valuations by today's standards, and an uncrowded playing field. The financial crisis had culled the herd of a ton of investors and fair weather founders. It was a target-rich environment, even for someone with very little to invest. Micro VCs were just cracking out of their shells, and the big players hadn't started assailing the seed stage stuff. In retrospect, it was a wildly rare combo of things. I don't believe I could replicate what I did in 2008 to 2012 today. Okay? So, obviously luck plays a very important role in investing. A lot of people don't really like to talk about it, especially if you've been you've been the benefactor of luck. But this also demonstrates humility. Number 5, personally, I've largely stepped back from angel investing to double down on writing and the podcast, The Tim Ferriss Show. This comes from a desire for more predictability and less stress. Right? Tim, he's more in the driver's seat with these things, running these operating businesses effectively, rather than betting on somebody else's business. I love the excitement of startups, and I've had some lucky wins, but I don't find it nearly as interesting as developing creative muscles that bring in forecastable revenue year after year. For me, that has compounded more reliably than the all or nothing bets. Massive ups and downs in sectors like crypto also take a toll that reduces my creative batteries. In this chapter of my life, I think simplicity is the name of the game. Finding one decision that removes 100 decisions. Number 6, over-optimizing is just as bad, if not worse, than under-optimizing. Past a certain point, buying extra Skittles just doesn't matter. So a note to self, stop fiddling around with your spreadsheets and get more interesting hobbies on the calendar. What hobbies? Exactly. A little humor there. Number 7, if we assume the point of investing is ultimately to improve your quality of life and the quality of life of those you most care about, investments that consistently add stress over long periods of time probably don't make sense. right? There's got to be a return on sanity factor here. Money is traded for things or experiences that catalyze certain feelings. If your investments are generating the opposite spectrum of feelings, it might be time to reassess. It's easy to miss the forest for the trees. Money is a means, not an end. And in the end, most things matter very, very little. Do what helps you sleep at night and wake up with a low heart rate. To me, those are the hallmarks of a world-class investor who gets the big picture. So I just resonate with so many of these points. Clearly a guy here who's spent a lot of time in the investing arena. Very different arena from where Buffett and Munger play, but a lot of the same lessons I think that have come out of experiences from value investors as well. So thanks, Tim, for these thought-provoking points, advice for the 30-year-old who's got $1 million. Interestingly enough, that's, I think, about where Pabrai started, around 30 years old with $1 million. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.